Oh, hello. I'm just sitting here enjoying my ventilated, massaging second row seats because I am in the top trim of the Infiniti QX80, and this full-size body-on-frame SUV does compete in a class that includes the Lincoln Navigator and the Cadillac Escalade, so it does have to offer things like this. Now, of course, since I am in the QX80 autograph, I've got every single bell and whistle that Infiniti could throw at it, so that's going to be pretty fun to go over today. But there's also some news about the QX80. See, it's redesigned for 2025. First time since 2017. It's bigger than it used to be. It's got more standard features plus a few Infiniti firsts, including this is the first time that anything in the QX80 lineup has crossed the MSRP threshold of $100,000. Base price is still around $85,000, but since we do have the top trim today, we're gonna see what exactly you get for 100 plus G's. The new QX80 is 3 inches wider and an inch longer than the old one, but height has stayed about the same. Now, in Infiniti's materials, they have called this a nearly flat hood. Stay tuned for my TED Talk on that, which I will deliver from behind the wheel, and subscribe to this channel for more expert CarGurus opinions. Now, in terms of things that have changed, we've got stacked headlights, we've got these segmented DRLs, and then the lines in the grille. I really like this, how they kind of flow upward. Makes me think of a waterfall, but kind of in reverse, because going upward. I especially like how the segments of the DRLs flare out while this flares in. It creates kind of an hourglass shape and a pinch right here, really high up, which I think draws the eye upward, gives it a very high visual belt line, and really contributes to making this look like a colossal, imposing front end. Now, this illuminated Infiniti badge, that is standard on this flagship luxury SUV. From the side, it's a lot more subtle than an illuminated badge might have you expecting. It's still upright and assertive the way that any good full-size SUV should be, but it's not overly blocky the way that some in the class are. On a scale from Escalade to Range Rover, I would argue that this is leaning more in the Range Rover direction, especially with the way that the tail sort of jogs up at the back. Bit of a ducktail effect like we've also seen on the Rivian R1S. Now, this has Infiniti's first ever flush door handles. Hard to tell right now, they've popped out because the key fob is nearby. That's something that happens automatically when you approach. Just like the welcome lighting, we also have an Infiniti first light path, so we will try to show you both of those things in the dark. They have blacked out all of the roof pillars on every trim for the new QX80, but this two-tone paint job is a top trim exclusive, and actually, if you want to avoid it on the top trim, your only option is to get black on black. You also could get black with the gray roof if you still want the contrast. Another top trim exclusive is the design on these 22-inch wheels, but the size comes on every trim except the base, which gets 20 inches. So either way, you're rolling on dubs. Back here, this full width tail lamp is new and again, super segmented, mirroring what we've seen from the DRLs. Now, there are more than 300 LEDs in here to create this effect. So we do start to see why this vehicle would get a little bit pricey, right? Now let's hop in where we really see it. Just getting in, it's definitely obvious that this is a luxury vehicle. It just looks very well designed and intentionally designed. Like we've got this sort of wood and metal on the dash. I did think at first it looked a little bit like a cheese grater, but it also looks very purposeful, so that's nice. One thing I noticed right off the bat, the center console looks huge. It's also very segmented. So this one has my phone charger. This one has the cup holders. This one has the available cool box. I can turn that on. You hear it going. It's immediately sort of refrigerating this compartment. But one cool thing, when I close it, you can barely hear that it's on. So that's pretty nice. I'm gonna turn it off though, because I don't wanna waste resources here. Materials are really pretty nice. I love this burgundy interior. This is only available on the top trim, but every trim does have some alternative to black. It might be white, it might be brown, but you've got options regardless. I will say behind this screen, I was expecting to have space, but that's filled in. Maybe it's good because you're not gonna trap, crumbs and dust and icky things back there. There is a pass-through down here where I put my phone. So a little bit of extra storage, not as much as I expected for how big this area is. Now, I mentioned materials. For $85,000, leather is not standard. You get synthetic leather on the base trim. Leather starts on the second one and then gets progressively fancier as you go up the trim ladder. Seems a little crazy to have synthetic leather for 85 grand, but there is a lot of real estate to cover in here because it is a 3-row. So let's cover each one. We'll start here because I'm already here. Heated front seats are standard, obviously. Again, $85,000. They become ventilated on the second trim. That's also where you get passenger side massage. The driver has to wait for the third trim level to get massage function. So let's check out the second row. Heated second row seats are standard too, which one might expect for $85,000. And they add ventilation right along with the front seats, but massage only comes in the second row on the very top trim, which also happens to be the one that's only available with captain's chairs. You can opt for a bench seat if you like on any of the other trims. Either way, one touch easy entry for the third row is standard, so let's hop on back there and check that out. Back here, we don't have massaging or cooling functions, but we do have heated seats on the top trim. We also have up to 32.9 inches of legroom, so it's not terribly spacious, but it's also not terribly tight, and it's pretty well equipped. Dedicated vents, USB-C ports back here, one on each side, so kind of got everything you need, really. Behind these seats, there are 22 cubic feet of cargo space. That's a 28% increase compared to the 2024 QX80. We did say that it was bigger for 2025, right? So let's find out how these new dimensions affect the driving experience. Well, it feels big from behind the wheel, but it is a big vehicle, so I can't really fault it for that. It's not unusual for body-on-frame SUVs either. It does a little bit of sort of lumbering, feeling its size, a bit like Godzilla lumbering around, but it's not pokey in spite of being so large. That's because of the new powertrain. So we've added 50 horsepower and more than 100 pound-feet of torque with the new twin-turbo V6. That's replaced the naturally aspirated V8. So total power now is 450 horsepower and 516 pound-feet of torque. We also have a new 9-speed automatic transmission instead of the old 7-speed. So it does give it a decent amount of get up and go despite its size. Rear-wheel drive is still standard, four-wheel drive is optional but standard on higher trims. This one has the electronic air suspension, which is another Infiniti first, and it's standard on all but the base trim. It does do a really nice job of smoothing out the ride, so in spite of those massive 22-inch wheels, things are still pretty well cushioned. The occasional really sharp bump you still feel as a jolt, but in general, this is pretty comfortable. And one thing I really like is that it's controlled. It doesn't sort of continue to bounce or wallow after a bump, unlike some Lincolns I know. Visibility is not great, but it's actually not as bad as I feared. This belt line looks higher from the outside than it does from behind the wheel. I do think it would be better if I were taller or if I could get this seat up a little higher. This is as high as it will go. And from here, I've got a very good view of the hood. I can tell you it is absolutely not flat. There are two kind of bulges on the side for the wheels and a peak in the middle. So I don't know where we're getting this nearly flat thing. That has not been my experience with the hood, but they have addressed that with a cool feature called Invisible Hood View. So that's standard, uses a camera feed to let you see basically directly below the vehicle in here. From what I can tell though, it only operates at very slow speeds. So it's gonna be useful in parking lots, and that's about it. I could not use it right now, for example. However, that does combine with front wide view. For another helpful visibility tech thing, front wide view is exactly what it sounds like. These dual 14.3-inch monolith style screens are a first for Infiniti. Interestingly, the wireless Apple CarPlay system reads them as 3 different screens, which I know because I took a screenshot the other day while I was still connected in park, of course, and it came up as 3 separate images. So I think it's picking up on this screen down here. This is where I would control my tri-zone automatic climate control, as well as select drive modes if I were going to do that. Another Infiniti first is the in-car camera up here. That's standard on the top trim, and it lets you keep an eye on your passengers in the second row, or you can access it via the app. So if, for example, you're like, wait, did I leave my sweater at the restaurant? Before you go back, you can just call up an image of your car on your phone and check if it's in the back seat. So that's pretty handy. other Infiniti firsts, we have a color head-up display, which I used on the way here with my Google Maps directions, so that was super handy. Google Maps are on board because it has standard Google built in. More cool things like a 64 color personalized ambient lighting system. I picked pink because I think it looks nice with the burgundy trim. It's a little highlight along there, so I think that's pretty cool. A Klipsch premium audio system is standard, but it's 14 speaker on the 2 lower trims, 24 speaker on the 2 higher trims, which is why we have these kind of crazy looking headrests in the front row. As of right now, the 2025 QX80 is not yet rated by independent safety organizations. The 2024 model got 4 out of 5 stars overall from the NHTSA because it scored only 3 out of 5 on frontal crash and rollover tests. But that is not unusual for the class. The Lincoln Navigator also scored just 3 on rollover, and the Cadillac Escalade. So as you start to see, the high center of gravity just kind of makes that a bit of a problem for full-size SUVs. But there is a pretty good suite of standard advanced driver assistance systems, including rear cross traffic alert, lane departure warning, blind spot monitoring, forward collision warning, automatic emergency braking. Actually, your blind spot monitoring can keep an eye on trailers that are up to 33 feet long, which is pretty cool. Now, if you're looking for highway driving assistance, ProPilot 1.1 is standard, and that basically combines adaptive cruise control with lane centering. If you want hands-free, ProPilot 2.1 is available and standard on this trim. That will give you hands-free highway driving assistance in some environments. The 2025 Infiniti QX80 starts at $84,445 for the base trim, including destination. That's with rear-wheel drive, so tack on an extra $3,100 if you want four-wheel drive. The top trim, including destination, starts at $112,590, so that's the sticker price of the vehicle we've seen today. And perhaps the most shocking thing about it is that it's really not shocking for the class. Infiniti had actually been lagging behind a little bit in terms of pricing, but they also hadn't updated the vehicle in several years. Now that they have, and especially considering that the only things I can find to complain about are to do with its size, which you're gonna get anywhere in the class, I think that they have every right to be pricing it comparably with its competitors. If you're going to be spending that much money on a vehicle, or really, if you're going to be buying a car at all, you want to make sure that you're making the right decision. So definitely check out anything you're considering in person. But since you're probably not going to get to spend a week with all of your options the way that we do, also leverage our experience. The CarGurus crew of expert reviewers has full video reviews up on the current generation of the BMW X7, Lexus LX, Cadillac Escalade, Land Rover Range Rover, Jeep Grand Wagoneer, Lincoln Navigator. Those are all the competitors I can think of off the top of my head. Definitely take advantage of those, and when you're ready to buy, head over to cargurus.com to make use of our deal ratings as well. Just please subscribe before you go.